My only question is, if I have to like go to the like bathroom, can we like pause it and then you bring it in, or?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're the first person to actually ask it, but I'm wondering, have I actually made some people piss themselves during an interview or something?
I didn't want to like, ask you in the middle of the interview and be like, yeah, can I go to the bathroom? And then like you say no and then that be in there.
Yeah. No, sorry, dude, you can't go to the bathroom. Like, you either hold it back or
chug like a glass of water as soon as I wake up, and like I did, and I was like, fuck.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It'll be a nice Joe Rogan-esque moment. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this new episode. And today I'm really excited to talk with Miguel Blacutt. Is that how I say your name?
Miguel Blacutt.
Miguel Blacutt. Okay. So, this is a good advice for all of you fellow podcasters. Like, when you have someone on, like Miguel, who you're not quite sure how to pronounce his name, just ask him. There is no harm. It's much better than just butchering his name. So, Miguel Blacutt, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm excited to talk to you because we are going to talk about a topic which probably a lot of listeners can relate to. Because you have a really fascinating story, which we will get into a second. But just before we do that, actually let people know, those people who may not be familiar with who you are, to actually get them interested in your story in the first place. So just maybe introduce yourself in one or two sentences, who you are and what you do currently.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity of, I think we've been talking about doing this for a while now, so it's awesome to actually do it. Yep. So my name is Miguel Blacutt, and, I do a lot of things currently. I study nutritional biochemistry at McGill University. I coach at Physique Development as well as flexible dieting lifestyle. I coach anything from contest prep athletes to just your regular person that wants to lose 20 to 30 pounds and look better. I work for Menno Henselmans at Bayesian Bodybuilding, as well as I write for Dr. Layne Norton for his website, BioLayne. And I also do release YouTube channels twice a week. So yeah, I'm fairly busy.
Right. Okay. So it seems like you're one hell of an involved person. So are you actually working for the Bayesian research team? Because when I met you the first time, this was in Amsterdam for the Sport and Performance Summit, then you were only interning, right?
Yeah, I'm still interning.
So you obviously were probably into fitness before you started to work for all of these sites. But maybe could you tell people, like, what was the first professional engagement that you had in the fitness sphere or in the fitness industry? Like, what platform did you first write to, or which was the first coaching opportunity that you had?
Piece of content I put out was actually a YouTube video. I had accumulated like a lot of research throughout the years, and I've really been involved in the fitness industry or researching fitness related topics, the scientific principles of nutrition and training, since I was about 16 years old. And I don't know, for some reason, like it just hit me when I was, I think I was like 19 or 20, and I just decided, okay, I'm going to start a YouTube channel, start putting pieces of content out there. And I started to gain some confidence with it. And I'm not sure if you know who this is, but Mark Lobliner from Tiger Fitness, I wrote him and was like, hey, I have a YouTube channel and I have all this knowledge, and I would love to write an article for you. Because at this time Mark was really pushing the content side of his supplement website, Tiger Fitness. And he took a look at my channel and was like, yeah, that we would love to have you write. So my first article ever was published on Tiger Fitness, a supplement website. And that just really gave me the confidence to start putting out more and more content.
Right. So it's my bad, actually. Probably I should have started here. But so are you kind of a researcher type of guy at heart? Is that how it all started for you? Like, were you one of those kids who like weren't quite satisfied with all the content that you can read on blogs and listen to on podcasts and YouTube channels of other people, but you started looking at direct research yourself, or is that how it started for you?
Yeah, I think like anyone, I started to really just look at people who broke down the content themselves. So I was just like taking in all this advice. I was reading a lot from people like Menno Henselmans, Lara McDonald, Mike Israetel, Alan Aragon. And, I love reading what someone else has to say about the research, but I also have a huge passion for doing the research myself. So I started to look at, peer-reviewed research myself. And I would call myself a researcher. My ultimate goal is to get a PhD and focus on research in strength and physique athletes while being a coach. And as a kid, I was the type of kid where if I was in a class and a professor said something and I asked why, and they're like, "Oh, well, this is outside of the scope of this class. I can't teach you in that much detail." I would go home and search it up, because I can't just be told this happens because it happens and be okay with that answer. No, I need to know in full detail why a certain thing happens.
Right. So this opportunity with the Tiger Fitness guys came together for you. You started putting out content for them. And how did it unfold from there? I'm assuming they were satisfied with your work. What was kind of the next stage for you? Are you still working for them, or?
No. I just released 2 or 3 articles for them.
Right.
Yeah. So, after I wrote for Tiger Fitness, people really liked those articles. They got a lot of shares. And I started to really, perhaps I should just give a progression through everything that happened. I think the whole story would be interesting to people.
Yeah, definitely.
So originally, I was actually, when I started writing when I started my YouTube channel, I was actually studying biomedical engineering. I graduated top of my class in high school, and because I graduated top of my class, I was told, well, if you graduate top of your class, you must go into engineering or business. That was the only 2 things the professor said,
Right.
So taking the typical route, I was like, hey, well, I'm going to go into engineering. This is what people do when they do well in school, whatever. And I went into engineering, and in my free time, that is actually when I was researching all these things. So I was actually busting my ass doing engineering. And during my free time, I wasn't partying. I wasn't, doing the typical college thing. I was actually doing research related to nutrition, training, programming, reading from all these experts. And that is when I accumulated all my knowledge. And that is what ultimately led me to start my YouTube channel. And when I realized how much knowledge I had accumulated and how much passion I have for this, I realized, well, why am I studying one thing, to make a living, and then another thing because I love it so much? Why not merge the 2 of them together? So that is when I decided, well, I'm not going to do biomedical engineering anymore, and I'm going to transfer into nutritional biochemistry. And, I transferred to the best school in Canada, McGill University, for nutritional biochemistry, and started to release all this content. So that takes us to, the Tiger Fitness thing. That's when I guess I kind of felt like, because I was in nutritional biochemistry, now I had the credentials to really put my name out there and say, hey, I'm studying this at this university. Can I write for you? So after writing for Tiger Fitness, I started to really focus on my YouTube channel. And I remember I wrote Alan Aragon on the bodybuilding.com forums and was like, hey, would you mind checking out my channel? And I had no idea if he would ever look at it, because can you imagine how many direct messages Alan Aragon gets?
Oh, yeah.
So after a month or two, he comments on one of my videos. He's like, dude, you have great content. I'm subscribed. So I write Alan Aragon, and I'm like, thank you so much for checking out my channel. If there anything at all that I can do for you, I would love any opportunity to be associated with you. And he's like, why don't you write an article for the Alan Aragon Research Review? And as you and your listeners know, this is pretty much like the most prestigious place where someone can submit an article to. Yeah. So, I wrote an article for him discussing refeed days and the true literature behind refeed days, cheat days, and how there's just, the evidence is just pointing at the fact that they really don't have any sort of significant physiological impact. And he loved it. The audience loved it. So then they liked it so much that I wrote for him again the next month. And it was a cool piece. It was in November. So I actually wrote an evidence-based article on holiday eating and how to avoid overeating during the holidays.
Sorry, can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
So I think right here there's an important lesson, I think, for everybody, that when you wrote to Alan, at that point you had, I mean, now you're currently still in university, you're still studying, and at the time, it's not like you had some crazy credentials next to your name. You were just a passionate guy who accumulated some knowledge and has put out some content to help people. And you were very much at the beginning of your journey, and this opportunity kind of came by your way. And I think my personal kind of lesson from this particular part of your journey is that you don't necessarily have to wait until you quote unquote get there to the final destination of your education or your development as a fitness professional. You can just kind of attempt things whenever you feel like you're ready. But what is your, like, you look back at this, because this is obviously a pretty pivotal moment in your life, I'm imagining. So what do you think? What kind of lessons did this experience teach you?
No, it definitely taught me exactly what you're saying, that you don't need to wait until you have, those letters at the end of the name stating that you know what you know. Especially in this industry, like, doing what we do is already so unconventional that you don't have to necessarily have that master's or PhD qualification. It's all about what you know, and the top people in the industry, I mean, they recognize who knows what. And if you come out with quality content, if you truly are evidence-based and you can help people, then people want you to write for them, because as saturated as this industry may seem, people are still looking for great content. And if you can provide that, then everyone will be so happy to have you along.
Yeah. And it's, as you said, Alan Aragon is probably a guy who gets a lot of messages, and maybe you maybe caught him at the right time. Maybe he just had a lot of caffeine and he was in a good mood when you wrote to him. Maybe you did get lucky. But the point is that if you never tried, you never would have gotten the opportunity. I mean, it's not to take away anything from or take credit away from you. You definitely had the skills to actually contribute. But the thing is, all those personal development cliches of you have to try, what is there to lose? I guess that's very true.
But can I swear on this podcast? Yeah. So like one thing, and this is actually like my motto sort of, is whenever I'm about to write someone or reach out to someone to see if I can provide something, I always say to myself, fuck it, why not? And that is actually like something that I actively say to myself. And what that means to me is, fuck it, why not? It's not like a YOLO thing. It's why not me? Like, I know all this stuff. I put in the hard work. Why not me? So I wrote, Alan Aragon saying, can I write for you? Can I contribute to the Alan Aragon Research Review? And inside my head, I'm thinking, yeah, I have all this knowledge. Like, why not me? Why would he not want me to do this? because someone is going to write for him. Someone is going to reach out to him, and he's going to like look at their hard work. Why should it not be me?
Yeah. And as you said, someone is going to do it. I mean, I look back now at certain things that I wanted to do maybe 2 years ago, and I sensed that there might be an opportunity, and then I hesitated. I eventually didn't do some of those things, and now I actually look around the horizon, and I actually do see a lot of people having done what I planned to do, and they pretty much started shortly after I planned these things. So that's very true, and also in terms of just fucking do it. That's it's very funny because that's one of my key advice points or pieces for people who want to start a podcast, for example. That if you have
I mean, for you, like you've had incredible guests on here, and if you are going to have incredible guests on a podcast, you have to have that fucking why not attitude. Like someone is going to interview Lyle McDonald. Why should it not be you?
Yeah, like when I first had Eric Helms on, that was during a time when I had maybe 2 or 3 subscribers. Probably one of those were my mom, and I had, I think, 1 YouTube video on, maybe an interview with Danny Lennon. And basically I was just in a moment where I was walking down the street and I just had a large cup of coffee. I was a bit fired up from all the caffeine. And I just wrote to Eric that, hey, Eric, like a big fan. I have a YouTube channel. It's like visibility is non-existent at this point, but would you be willing to come on? And because Eric is a super nice, genuinely helpful person, he decided to come on. And that video is now probably my most viewed video ever on my YouTube channel. And it was an awesome interview, one of my favorite interviews to date. So yeah, if you have a spark of inspiration in one moment, just fucking go with it and don't wait until you're quote unquote ready, because the thing is you will never be ready. Like there is always a reason not to attempt something, but if you do attempt it, then you may actually have a chance to.
Yeah, you don't need the perfect moment. Create it.
Exactly. Cool. So let's go on with your story. So you submitted 2 articles to Ellen. How did it go from there?
Yeah. So it went amazing because, one of my things with the fitness industry is that fitness and science, it's one of those things where people can get really like pedantic about it. Like people release content and sometimes the content stops being so much about helping people and it just becomes about, look how much I know. And people put things in terms that really like no one can understand. And my thing is I want to be able to do the research myself, but also break it down in terms that every single person should understand. And that's one of the things that has helped me throughout my life. I mean, I really love helping people understand a complicated topic. So when I release these videos or these articles for Alan, people really liked them because I took these complicated terms and complicated research on refeed days and on overeating on the holiday article, and I really allowed people to understand it. So people love those, and it went great. Alan and I have a great relationship. So now, because I had written for Tiger Fitness, for Alan Aragon, and my YouTube channel was growing, I think about this time I was at about 3,000 subscribers. Also due to the help of someone, this big YouTuber, Jerry Ward, with like 150,000 followers. He saw my videos and gave me shout outs. He gave me like 4 or 5 shout outs. Like he literally made 5 videos about my videos. So this time, like I had momentum going, right? Yeah. And that for some odd reason, again, in a fucking why not moment, I emailed Layne Norton and was like, hey, do you need any help writing articles, anything at all? And, you know, when he sees, okay, well, this guy wrote for Alan Aragon, he wrote for Mark Lobliner, and he has a YouTube channel, he was like, yeah, I would love to have you write some articles for me. So then I started writing for Layne Norton. And that went amazing. Really, really great to write for Layne. And Then after I started writing for Layne, I was listening to a podcast with Menno Henselmans, and he said that he went to the University of Utrecht, or he said something about Utrecht. I think that's where he did his undergraduate, and Utrecht happens to be close to where my parents live. And, you know, as many of the listeners may know, what we do is very unconventional. And at this time, you know, if you want to be an online coach, it's hard to know what to do during the summers, because if you want to be an engineer, a businessman, consultant, whatever the case may be, you get a summer internship. But how do you get an internship in online coaching in bodybuilders and fitness? It's very hard. So I wrote Menno and said, hey, do you have anything available? Do you have any advice? Like, I don't know what to do for an internship because this is so unconventional. And I told him like all about my background. He was like, I would love to have you interview for an internship with me. So this time I had under my belt, I had the YouTube channel. I wrote for Tiger Fitness, for Alan Aragon, and for Dr. Layne Norton, which, you know, it's pretty good to have for anyone who is looking at a resume. It looks good.
It's a pretty insane list of names.
Yeah. So I interviewed with Sana, then interviewed with Menno, and they took me on. They liked me. So then at that time, you know, still building the resume. And again, it was a fucking why not moment, because I listened to the podcast and then got home and immediately emailed Menno, and, you know, Menno's a nice guy. He received it really well. And that went great. It was it is an incredible experience to intern with the Bayesian Bodybuilding team. You just learn so much from Menno. Like, the things that guy knows is insane.
Yeah, he's a genius for sure.
Dude, like, you can talk to him about anything. He knows research behind any topic at hand.
Yeah, and what was that internship about? Or, yeah, well, what was in the agreement?
So it was mostly helping him him and Luis Villaseñor help release the Bayesian course in the Spanish version. Right. And now I'm doing some other work, but now that the course is launched.
Okay, so it was mainly translation work at that point initially?
Yeah. Now it's evolving into some other things, but at that point it was getting the course to the Spanish version. He's launched it in a few languages now, and it's so well received, but for good reason. It's an incredible course. Yeah,
right. So for up until that point, it was mainly your writing, or what would you attribute, other than the willingness to actually try it, when you look at your skill sets and your maybe your natural abilities or talents? I don't really like using that term because it can be a little bit intimidating for people. But what factors would you attribute that you managed to get yourself these opportunities? Is it your writing skills, your research skills, your ability to break things down simply, or?
I think it's a mixture of the writing, and consider myself to be a good writer, mixed with the research, and also mixed with the fact that I am willing to work harder than anyone. Like, you give me an opportunity, and I know how competitive it is, and I know how people would literally like kill me to have the opportunity that I have. There's so many people that want to do the things I'm doing, and I constantly get messages about it. People saying like, how are you in contact with, or how are you working with Layne Norton and Menno and Flexible Adding Lifestyle? And since I know how quote unquote lucky, I wouldn't really call it luck because I think I earned it, but I know how golden these opportunities are. I am not letting them slip for anything, and I work incredibly hard. And I think that's something that people have liked. Is the fact that I'm just really willing to work hard and really willing to put in the extra research, because there's always like another study you can cite or an extra point you can make, and mix that with the ability to really, really break it down and teach someone and make them understand something, and you get yourself these opportunities.
Right. Yeah. I think one thing that probably is worth pointing out here is that there are a lot of people who are regular commenters and regular contributors in these evidence-based fitness Facebook groups, for example, and communities, but actually doing the research and actually going through studies, trying to find holes in some reasoning and reading through actual study papers, that's actually a pretty mundane, boring, not so sexy task. Like people are attracted to the evidence-based fitness practices, but they only see the glorious moments, like Mike Israetel sitting down and giving some cool explanations with one of his golden analogies, and Eric Helms being invited to a podcast. But actually reading or sitting over a paper and reading it for a couple of hours and doing multiple of those a day or a week, that's actually not very sexy. That's when it that's the grindy part of it. And I think as seemingly as saturated as it seems, I think there's still not many people who are actually willing to do that part of the job. And it seems like you were one of these people, or you are one of these people.
Yeah, and I love it. I mean, and it's something that people don't quite realize, is that nobody actually studies bodybuilders. A lot of the times I get messages on my Instagram, and people ask me, well, how do you learn these things? Like, can you tell me like what the resource is, or can you point me in the study that you read this? And I'll send them a study where they're tracing leucine kinetics, or they're looking at some like mTOR biochemical pathways, and people think that researchers like just do a research and write like, oh, this causes more muscle growth than this. But no, it's actually like, it's really complicated. And if you've ever read a full text journal, you have to be able to really like dissect everything from the methods to statistical analysis to the conclusions that the researchers drew from it. And if you're able to do that, then I think that the market is actually still pretty open. And we have seen that. I mean, just now with the release of MASS, Eric Helms' research review, people want people who can break things down and make it simple, because no one wants to read a full text journal. Like, people don't want to know if the statistical methods make sense, if the conclusions actually reflect the results. And if you can really dedicate yourself to focus on interpreting research and explaining it to others, then I think there's a huge market for you.
Yeah. So was this something, or how long ago? Or so we went through like the initial stages of your development. So your first job with Tiger Fitness, then Aragon, then Layne Norton. So when you arrived to these destinations, at that time, were you already able to do these things like interpreting statistical analyses and understanding terms like leucine tracer and radioactive leucine tracer, or whatever, all these kinds of things? Or initially, was it a lot more kind of just the broad picture?
I think here it's important to note that between my first writing job with Tiger Fitness and now, it's been exactly a year. Mm-hmm. So when I started with Tiger Fitness, like, I had already accumulated a lot of my knowledge. Like, I'm still, obviously, like, as evidence-based practitioners, we're still learning every single day, but I had accumulated a lot of knowledge by then. And I think at that point, like, I already knew all these terms because I was accumulating like research since I was like really 16 years old.
Right. And how old were you when you first landed that job at Tiger Fitness?
20, and I'm 21 now.
Okay. So you've been reading, trying to interpret research, and you've been educating yourself for 4 years diligently at that point.
Yeah. Well, I think what's important for people to understand here is that my grandmother owned a chain of gyms, and my mom grew up in gyms, and I grew up in a gym. So when I was 16 years old, like most people say like, oh yeah, well, I started reading articles at 16 years old, and most people like being like Muscle and Strength magazine. But I actually like at 16 years old, I knew that my passion was the gym. But I have no idea why I went to biomedical engineering, knowing that like I love sports. And anyone who met me, like since the time I was like 13 years old, all I could talk about was the gym and applications to like strength research. And at 16, like I was already like pretty serious about it. So by the time I was 21, I had already accumulated like quite a wealth of knowledge. Like I read every single thing that I could get my hands on. So to answer your question, yeah, I still like at the point where I started writing for Tiger Fitness, I knew all these terms, but I think now I'm starting to really hone in more on those like itty little bits of scientific research that that really only like a PhD level researcher would want to know.
Right. So did we miss out, by the way, anything? So is there something new these days going on for you that we didn't touch on?
Yeah. So after, or I guess while in the Netherlands researching or doing interning for Menno, I'm not sure if your viewers will know, but there is someone on Instagram goes by the name of Flexible Dieting Lifestyle, and his name is Zach Rochelot. And what this guy does is that you can imagine any recipe you can possibly think of, like the most calorically dense of desserts. And what he does is he takes these things and he makes them like stupidly calorie friendly, like ridiculous. You look at his recipes and you're like, how does this have that many calories? So he accumulated quite a large following. I think he has like 150,000 followers on Instagram. And he decided to put something together called the Flexible Dieting University, which is just teaching people about the flexible dieting lifestyle. Take these people who have done like all these restricted diets and really teach them like the basics of protein, carbs, fats, things that people want to know about these terms, like without taking a precision nutrition course or Shredded by Science or the Bayesian Bodybuilding course, just really baseline knowledge, or a little bit more than baseline, but really giving people like an accessible education. So I saw that he decided to start this, and because this is my thing. I love breaking down things into terms people can understand. I sent him a message again. Fuck it, why not? And when he saw in my resume that I worked for Mark Loveline, for Tiger Fitness, for Aragon, Layne Norton, Menno Hanselmans, he immediately agreed. Like he loved the opportunity, and we started working on the Flexible Dieting University. And then at the time, he also wanted to release online coaching. So myself, Zach Rochelot, and another big Instagram personality, a really close personal friend now, Austin Current, he was also on board, and he was the one that had currently launched the university, and Zach's head coach, and all of us launched the coaching program together, and went amazing. We're taking on clients there, and Austin actually, he also has a very large Instagram following. He developed his knowledge. He has a degree in biomechanics, and actually learned from Ben Pakulski at MI40. So he's a biomechanics whiz, and he has a very great coaching company called Physique Development. And Austin and I like really hit it off. Like we would have these like 3-hour talks and just agree on all these topics. And his coaching is a little bit more geared towards intermediate, advanced level physique and strength athletes. So because we agreed so much on all these topics, ultimately it led to him and his business partner, his other coach, Alex Bush, taking me on. So then I was also coaching now for Physique Development. So then at the current time, I'm still writing for Layne Norton, interning for Menno Henselmans, coaching at Flexible Dieting Lifestyle, and coaching at Physique Development while studying nutritional biochemistry at McGill.
It sounds like your days are pretty packed with activities then.
Oh yeah, like I don't have free time anymore. It's awesome for me because and that's something that I often get questions about is how do you handle not having free time? And it's because what I do, I love so much that I don't need free time. Like I spend hours programming or writing content, and I feel like some people do after they play video games. It's what I truly love doing.
Yeah. It's I think being just packed with stuff to do. Sometimes, of course, it can be exhausting, but at the same time, that's when you kind of really feel like you're alive and you're progressing in life. So that's awesome that you're in that place. But let's switch back for a second to kind of the business development side of things. So now you have a lot of things going for you, and as we touched on it, like this industry is very, very packed. And we talked about this with a couple of guests like Luke Johnson from Shredded by Science. But what he's doing is kind of different from what you're doing because he's more of a curator and collector of other experts who develop or who deliver information. But you're doing a lot of the things that a lot of people want to do in this field, especially on the more evidence-based side of the fitness world. So coaching and writing articles, things of that nature. So apart from the mentality of trying things, what do you see things that a lot of the people who are trying to get their names out and trying to get opportunities do wrong, or do you think that there are some commonalities that we can observe in them and that they could correct to increase their chances at least of succeeding in getting into this industry?
Yeah, I think that's a very great point. So many people want to be successful online coaches now, and so many people, but unfortunately, take erroneous approaches. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is trying to use their physique to get them clients or to get them a certain level of status that allows them, or to use a physique to leverage themselves into getting clients. I think it's important. And this is something that I kind of, I think battled with a bit. It was like, okay, well, all these people look better. How can you compete with that? And I realized very quickly that when you truly dominate the knowledge, clients see that and they sign up with you. I think that one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is not delivering enough knowledge. Like, your physique isn't sufficient enough to get you clients. Just because you were able to get your physique to a certain place does not necessarily mean that you can do it for someone else. One of the greatest things that has allowed me to get to where I am is literally just giving people knowledge and giving people knowledge for free. That is how people see how much you know, and that's what makes them want to work with you.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very great point, and I think it's important to early on recognize if you're one of those blessed individuals who may go a long way just by showing off their physiques. I mean, obviously, nobody quite just gets their clientele by just showing off their physiques. Like, there are people with incredible physiques out there, like Matt Ogus, like Steve Cook, these guys. But even them, they provide other things besides just showing off their physiques. But, let's not kid ourselves. These people are incredibly genetically blessed, and they have physiques that most of us can only hope to have. But most of us are kind of forced to take other avenues and not just rely on our physiques because, you might have a decent physique, but that's more of a, how do you say it? It's just that's a very common thing that most people will be able to achieve by some intelligent work in the gym at least. So you need to have something more to show for.
Mm-hmm. And I think that one of the biggest things that, one of the biggest advices that I have to give people who want to do this online coaching is that you have to truly, in the bottom of your heart, want to help people reach their goals. A lot of people I've come across, like, they want to do the online coaching because it's, well, let's not kid ourselves. It's kind of a glorious thing right now, right? It's this new sexy thing that, you're an online coach and you work for yourself and you take on clients and put them through prep. And it's a cool thing. But you have to, like, in the bottom of your heart, like, want to truly help people and deliver them with a great deal of knowledge. My goal with my clients is that when we are done working, I want them to be able to coach themselves. Obviously, like, they can keep hiring me if they want that accountability, but I want them to learn so much from me that they feel comfortable taking their own reins. And even if someone doesn't hire me as a coach, I want someone to be able to look at the content that I provide, at my videos, at my Instagram stories, and truly have learned something that can help them to better their physique, because bettering your physique is hard and there's so much bad information out there. And I can honestly say that at the bottom of my heart, I just want to help people. I want to help that mom lose those 20 pounds that she's been struggling with. I want to help that competitor get first place. I truly want to help people. And I think that's something that everyone who is interested in online coaching should have at the bottom of their hearts.
Yeah, that's very true, that you have to have some kind of an inner compulsion to do it, just besides setting up a successful business. Like you said, kind of the online coaching thing is kind of the equivalent of these ab machines that they sell on TV shop, that you just put on your abs and it's supposed to give you a six-pack. That it seems like the magic bullet that, okay, you just sleep in, you wake up, sit in front of your laptop, you bang out a couple of emails, and then you get money. But like you said, like me, for example, whenever I see someone who is overweight or just kind of an average person, reasonably out of shape, and I see that person drinking diet soda, whatever, like several or not diet soda, regular soda, several cans a day. And I'm just looking at that person and thinking that it would be so easy for that person to make small changes and get drastic results. And when I see that, that's an inner compulsion that drives me to want to help people. Or whenever I put out a podcast episode, a solo episode, when I talk about some stuff, that comes from an inner drive, some inner frustration that I just want to speak about it, but most of my friends are not into fitness, so they don't care. So I feel like I have to share it with the world. So yeah, that's a very good point.
And it's frustrating because, like, I see, at the gym, like, so a lot of the times in the gym, like, I don't listen to music. I don't know why. I don't really like to listen to music a lot at the gym. I kind of like to focus. I either like not listen to anything or I actually listen to a podcast. So I get to hear a lot of the gym conversations, and I get to hear a lot of, one lady saying to the other, well, I'm trying this like low carb thing, or like this. Not necessarily that low carb is bad, but people attempt it in very wrong ways. Or like they're saying I'm trying this like low protein thing, or I was told that if I do this cardio protocol, and like I don't want to be the guy that interjects and is like, actually, like that's wrong. You should do this and this. But I have to stop myself from correcting that guy's form or telling the person like, hey, you should try this, because I want to help people so bad. And it's not because I want to be, a lot of people, like, they like to help people to be like the knight in shining armor that, like, I have the answers. But I have to stop myself from looking like the guy, because I just want to like be like, hey, you should try this, or this is why this works. I just want people to have the knowledge and to help them succeed in their physique goals, in performing a movement correctly and losing that weight. I genuinely want people to succeed in their goals.
Right. And so we touched on the fact that you need to have, it's good to have some kind of a unique skill that requires effort, so that will make people not generally wanting to do it, like being able to interpret research and read studies. The other thing was what we just mentioned is just a general willingness or desire to really want to help people. Is there, if you were to kind of take another guy, if you could go back in time and see yourself at age 19, 20, wanting to get into this industry, and could give yourself some tactical business type of advice to help you actually get into this industry, is there anything else that comes to mind that could be useful for people from a kind of a tactical perspective?
Yeah, I think that one of the greatest things that people have to take into account is that when you're just starting out, you want to take on all the clients, right? And you want to really like dive into the world of online coaching. But I would say to people not do this online coaching thing, not dive into the online coaching world if it is at the time your only source of income and you need clients in order to pay the bills and be able to buy food. And the reason I say this is because when you start online coaching, you or at any time actually that you do online coaching, you have to be selective about the clients that you take on. You shouldn't take, if you're doing this from giving people macros and periodization protocols, and you're truly doing things from an evidence-based standpoint, you shouldn't take on a busy mom of 4 that can't sit down to have a meal and isn't going to track her intake and just has a very disorganized life. You have to be selective about the clients you take in, because you have to pick people who are going to adhere to your plan and who you can truly help. Don't take people's money who like this person is not going to adhere to the plan and they are going to get frustrated, and that is not going to work out good for that person or for yourself. And I've done that mistake. I've been at the point where I want to take on all the clients, and I take on someone who has an extremely busy lifestyle and just will not be dedicated to fitness, because a lot of people will pay you just to feel like they are doing something towards their physique goals. And you should take on clients that, you have to screen them and make sure that it is someone who realistically will adhere to what you have to tell them, will appreciate you, and then will follow through. And that works out good for you and for the client. It works out good for the client because they get the results. They get to see what you truly got to them. And it works out for you, 1, because you get to help someone, and 2, because then you get an amazing client testimonial that you can put on your page. And in my experience, like, client testimonials are one of the best ways to get more clients, because people see, okay, well, this person did that for this person, so I'm going to hire them. If they did that for them, then why can't they do it for me? So that is one of the greatest pieces of advice I have, is don't start from a point of desperation of where you need clients. Start from a point where you can be selective about the clients you take in, and only take clients who both yourself and the client can benefit from. That does not mean that you should only take on like these perfect clients, and if people have no experience with dieting, then you shouldn't take them on. But take on people who are willing to learn, and people who are willing to put in the effort of going through the diet of whatever service they're inquiring for.
Yeah, that is a very good point. It's a lot of people have this idea that okay, I'm just going to quit my job and jump into coaching full time. But the thing is that puts you and your client into a very fragile, vulnerable position, because, like you said, you are a lot more likely to make bad calls. And if you contrast that with someone like a Menno or a Layne Norton, who has a full list of applying clients for them who want their service, they can pretty much just screen for the people that they are basically 100% sure that they can actually help. And they're not in need of making rash decisions. At the same time, though, I realize that it can be tough for people when they're starting out, and maybe they want to kind of rush things because simply they need the money. So that might be just an argument for just taking it slowly, like, and especially because online coaching and just working online in general is something that you can do besides having an actual full-time job. So yeah, that's important to keep in mind. Yeah. Another thing I want to ask you about, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, is a big mistake that I made early on. Is I was looking at a lot of the people who put out these really entertaining pieces of content. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Radu Antoniu, for example. Yeah. So, and by all means, he has a fantastic channel. But the type of content he's providing is more like educational entertainment, if I had to classify it in some way. But I was looking at his channel and even channel like the Bro Science Life, like these guys which are just purely entertainment. And I had to, and my idea was, which I think is the idea of a lot of people, is that I am going to build up this platform based on entertainment. And once I have a large following, I will start building up an email list, and I'm going to develop a clientele, or I'm going to sell information products. But the thing is that that's not the kind of content producer or not the kind of person that I am. I just want to be a person who puts out information for people or provides education. And if based on that, someone is interested in buying something that I put out or interested in my services, then that's all good. But I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people make, is that they think that there will be these two stages of their business development. One is building up a large following based on entertainment, and then leveraging them in terms of actually getting clients or selling products. Do you see where I'm going with this? So you never.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, actually, because a lot of it's funny because when I started in fitness, the YouTube scene was a lot of information, right? I mean, everyone who released videos was releasing informational videos. I mean, even the Hodge twins, like their channel started as information, and now it seems that people, they want to make their names as vloggers, right? And you've seen this. People like start vlogging fitness channels, not informational fitness channels, but vlogging channels, and hope to somehow get clients from the form of vlogging. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, Christian Guzman is very entertaining to watch, but I would never get coached by him. I want to get coached by Eric Helms.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's a great point, and I think that what you have to do is you have to find a way to provide information to people in your own style. If you watch my videos on YouTube, I kind of have a similar style to Omar Isa, where it's 90% information, but I will make a joke, I'll do a skit, I'll do something funny in order to keep people entertained, because I don't think that, you necessarily retain the most amount of information just from, watching someone sit there and talk. And I think all great speakers, they have some sort of sense of humor. I mean, Mike Israel had us on the floor laughing at the SPS.
Oh yeah.
And everyone who is able to convey information in a good way, they sort of personalize it in a way. So to build on what you're saying, I think that if you truly want to be a respectable source of information and to get clients, if that is your goal. Now, if your goal is to just do the vlogging thing and accumulate a following, that's fine. There's people who just want the following. But if your goal is to be seen as a source of information or as a good, reputable online coach, then provide as much information as possible. Make your content 85, 90% information, but find a way to personalize it. So people are like, yeah, I want to be coached by this guy in specific. I like him. I jive with him. And I actually had a conversation about this with Austin, because he posts, very informational biomechanic videos. And he was telling me that a lot of the clients that he gets aren't actually from, obviously like they are because they see the biomechanics, but it's when he posts a picture just showing what he did that day or showing himself traveling, and he posts like a motivational caption or a caption that gives a little bit of insight into his life. And that is when people like really see who you are and they connect the dots. They're like, okay, well, this person knows this, and this. They're a great source of information, but also like they have this personality thing to them that I really like and I really want to work with them. And I think that's something that all evidence-based people have. Like it's 90% information, but each person that is successful, if you look at them, they have that like little quirk that really makes them special.
Yeah, that is exactly right. Like that actually brings up a related point, which is, what do you think about the form of content or the platform? Video as opposed to blogging, as opposed to audio. What do you think about all those?
I think that that YouTube and podcasts are definitely the future. I mean, podcasts are they're so great to listen to. People who are into fitness, like we tend to be busy, we tend to meal prep, walk places, do cardio. So podcasts are definitely a great way to convey information. And YouTube as well. It's so, if you can make a good quality video, then you can really build a great following. Instagram is also an amazing place to learn, now that these infographics are taking off. They provide people with so much information. So no matter what you do, you can provide people with great information and really show how much you know.
And really, I just want to hark back on one of the points that you mentioned. I wanted to touch on this earlier, but somehow it slipped off me. That you don't have to have the best physique out there to get a large following and to become a successful online coach. Like if I think of the people that I either got coaching from in the past or that I would be interested in getting coaching from in the future, none of them are people with the best physiques. Like I can, from the top of my head, I can name at least 5 people in natural lifters, content producers who have way better physiques than them. But that's not what matters, because I know that I could learn so much from them. Like Eric Helms is one person. Like he knows, everybody knows that Eric is not the person with the most jacked aesthetic physique. He has a great physique and he is a lot more jacked than I am. But he's not the person who is posting shirtless photos on Instagram every day. I'm looking up to him because of his knowledge and because my faith in the practical things that he's able to apply for his clients. So that is just so important for people to realize that you don't feel like you're limited because of you didn't pick your parents intelligently in terms of physique development.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing, and I think the only reason I didn't start this earlier, I mean, I still started pretty early, but it's because I thought that, you also had to have the physique to go along with it, and that people only listen to you if you had that physique. And I learned very quickly that is completely wrong. And the people at the top, like, I think there are very few people at the top who actually have like a very impressive physique.
Yeah, and that's simply because the realities of natural bodybuilding, natural lifting is that you will have an incredible physique if you are genetically incredibly blessed. It's very hard by being really hardcore with your training and nutrition. It's really tough to override these limitations. And really, if you have a decent physique, if you take your shirt off and people go like, okay, this guy clearly works out, then basically you could be doing 95% as well as you could do in terms of applying practical knowledge for yourself.
Yeah, if you have the knowledge and people listen, I mean, look at Omar Isa. He doesn't have necessarily a very impressive physique. He has a great physique for a natural athlete, but it's not something that you'd like turn your head around if you saw at the beach. And he has like 600,000 followers. I mean, 3DMJ, Eric Helms, he's arguably like probably the most popular source of information right now. And he doesn't have a physique that, like, if you saw him in the street, you wouldn't like turn your head around and be like, wow, that guy, he really must work out and know everything about fitness. He just looks like a dude that lifts.
Yeah. And another important thing to realize is that you don't even necessarily have to have the biggest following, because you just mentioned 600,000 following. You're a very successful guy at this point already, and you have 5,000 or 6,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is a respectable number, but it's not, it's not like not like one of these crazy successful vloggers out there who have several million or several 100,000, as with some of these fitness content producers. And the reason why you're so successful is because the following that you have is actually very high quality, and they look up to you and respect you. And
that's a great point. And by no means did I have a very big following. I had an even smaller following when I started. When I started all this, I had like 2,000 subscribers and like 300 followers on Instagram. But at no point did Alan Aragon or Menno ask me, how many followers do you have? How many subscribers do you have? They just looked at how much I knew and made the decision based on that. And if you have the knowledge, if you have the ability to help people, the following will come, and people will want to know what you have to offer. So if you have the skills, and at one point or another, if you release good content, the following will come. You don't have to wait for the following to come before you start releasing content. If you wait, then it'll never come.
Yeah. So before I'm asking you one of the last questions that I have for you, is there any important point about any of this that we kind of skipped over you think you would be valuable to mention?
I think one of the most valuable things to mention is that, again, people ask this question a lot about like how you become an online coach, how you become a writer for this or writer for that. And people sometimes don't realize how much work and hours of work goes into this. The online coach thing, like I said, is a very like sexy new thing that people want to try out. But if you really want to be successful in this industry, and this applies to any sort of entrepreneurship, you really have to be willing to put in a lot of work and hours of hard, grindy work. And only then, like, does this become like this sexy job that, you can work for yourself. But if you truly want to be an online coach, or you want to take on like the roles that I have taken on, I have gone through countless nights of like sleeping 2 hours a night, not sleeping. It has required like all my time, all my dedication to do well in school and be able to write for these people and check up with clients. It really takes hard work. So if you want to be an online coach, then just know that it is not easy. It is not posting up a six-pack picture of yourself and saying, now taking on clients. It is all your time, all your energy. It requires constant work. It requires sleepless nights, and it will be hard and you will be frustrated. But if you truly have a passion for this, it'll be worth it.
Okay, so here's a practical question for you then. Let's say there is a person who is trying to get into this space or any space, any entrepreneurial venture. and he currently has a full-time job from 9 to 5, but is trying to get into this industry, has some decent amount of knowledge, and is willing to do what it takes and wants to progress with his business development as fast as possible. So 9 to 5, full-time job. How would you recommend this person structure his day? Let's say he has no family obligations, stuff like that. But that 9 to 5 job is certainly there. What kind of schedule would you recommend for this person?
So 9 to 5 job, I would say they're currently weight training, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say if you work a 9 to 5 job, you're weight training and you want to take this on, then I would recommend that you weight train in the morning, do your 9 to 5 job, and then when you come home from that job, you need at least like an hour or two to really like clear your space to be able to produce high quality work. So, make yourself a good dinner, watch an episode of your favorite of your favorite TV show, really like reset your mind, and then work from like 7 to midnight, 7 to 1 in the morning. Really, it's going to take a lot of effort, and my own fitness has suffered a little bit because obviously like I don't sleep very much, but that is exactly what you have to do. You have to be willing to put up with the suck, and you have to know, okay, well, I am going to have to go through this digging phase where it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, and maybe I have to work from 7 to 1 and then get up at 6 and go to the gym. But that is just temporary, and after you do that for a while, and you start to get clients, you start to put out client testimonials, and clients start to come on a little bit easier, and you're able to really get momentum going, then it's going to get a little bit easier. But for that time, for when you are starting out, you just have to know that it's going to suck for a little bit and embrace it. I think that a lot of times people try to avoid the suck. They try to find a way to like hack their way around suffering a little bit. But the only honest thing to say is that it is going to suck for a little bit, and you are going to have to go through those tough moments. And I think you can attest to this, that when you are trying to put this thing together, it gets difficult, and you just have to be willing to stick through it. Like any contest prep or any physical thing, at one point or another, you're like, this is just so hard. But the passion is what drives you through it.
Yeah, so all the things that we teach you guys in fitness, and we all learn in fitness, get your 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night. That's in a world where you're not having a full-time job and you're trying to build up your life so that you don't have the full-time job anymore, but you have another full-time job instead. When you're going through that phase, something will have to give, and probably it will be your recovery ability from the gym and things of that nature. So, so proposed schedule 9 to 5. So wake up at 6 or 7, go to the gym, have a meal or something, go to the office 9 to 5. From 5, you get home at around 6, have an hour of relax time, and from maybe 7 to 1 a.m., grind a little bit, and then 5 or 6 hours of sleep. Would that be a reasonable schedule?
Yeah, I think that would be a great schedule for someone to have. Obviously, it's not a great schedule in terms of it's not going to allow you to make the most gains or be fully recovered and get enough sleep to actually be restful. But for that situation, I think it's what's required.
Right. And it's everybody's own call. If you don't want to make this transition the absolute fastest and, you want to make it a bit more balanced, then, just work from 7 till 10 a.m. and then hit the sack. But just realize that then it might mean that you will get your end goal a little bit slower. And for some people, it might be totally fine. So it's just a matter of choices and trade-offs.
Yeah, and people like to throw around the word balance a lot, and I think that if you are going to be successful at anything, then really like balance is kind of goes out the window. It's just managing your priorities is what I like to call it. Because if you are working until 1 a.m. and getting up at 6 to go to the gym, then no, your life is not balanced, but it is, you are managing your priorities. I mean, if you're doing well with your job and you're doing well with your family and you are advancing in your fitness industry, like maybe your life isn't completely balanced. You are, you're not the guy that is like, you have balance with friends and everything, but you are managing your life according to your priorities. And because you do this, you will be moving towards those priorities and eventually be successful.
Yeah, 100%. Great points, man. So do you have another few minutes just for me to ask my last question of you? Awesome. So would you be able to take us through like a typical day of yours these days with school going on for you and managing all the other obligations that you have? How does a typical day look like in your life?
Yeah, so I typically, and this is something that I like to do, I will always kind of wake up 30 minutes earlier than what I know I have to be up at. And during this time, I like to really plan my day, because I find that I need to know exactly what I'm doing, at what hours I'm doing, and in the order that I'm doing it. Because typically you know what you can plan around that day. I have like a calendar where I know like everything that I have to do within a month, and then I look at that, and 30 minutes before I have to actually do anything, I look at that in order to plan exactly what I am going to do that day and what I refuse to go to bed at before I do those things. So that is typically as soon as I wake up. Then I get up, I have a morning smoothie. I like to have smoothies because they just kind of like allow me to get my day started as quickly as possible. And right now, my earliest class is at 11, so I get a few hours of, I usually wake up around like 7, so I can get some work done before my class. I usually work from like 7 to 9, then or 7 to 9:30. Then I go to the gym, and then I go to my first class. And usually I have class from like 11:30 to 5:30. Finish class, come home. I make dinner, and I watch an episode of Friends or whatever. I like distract myself for about like 30 to 45 minutes. Then I do any schoolwork I have to do. So usually I'll do schoolwork until like 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m. And then I will do some work for my client, for flexible dieting, for physique development until like 2 to 3 a.m. and then restart again. And yes, that means that on an average night, I sleep between 4 to 5 hours, and no, that is not optimal for my fitness. And I have to really work at reduced volumes. But like I said, it is what is currently required, because I am not willing to sacrifice my grades or the quality of my coaching or the quality of my content or YouTube videos. I want everything to be as high quality as possible. And if that means that I am going to be groggy throughout the day or that I am not going to be like the most comfortable, then that is just what I am willing to do. And it's not necessarily something that everyone is going to be willing to do. For some people, like getting those like that full night's sleep, that might be your priority, and that is totally fine. But this is just what I am doing, and the amount of things that I'm juggling at once makes me have to sleep this little.
Right. So you're full on hustling mode. So how many sets are you doing in the gym currently per week per muscle group?
I would say between 15 to 20, but I can handle, like if I'm getting full recovery, I can handle and grow from a lot of volume. And I think this is because pretty much like everyone in my family, like we're all very, very athletic. And, my parents, they're both bigger than I am. And, like they can handle like easily 25, 30 sets per muscle group per week and grow from it.
Holy moly.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I look at like I do their programming, and I'm like, yeah, I would break if I did this. And they're growing and they're recovering and they're completely fine.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So you mentioned reduced volume. That's still a fair amount of volume, 15 to 20 sets.
Yeah, but for someone else, like following this schedule, I would say like stick to like 10 to 15. I can do 15 to 20 because genetically, I can just handle a lot of volume. So for me, 15 to 20 is a little bit reduced.
Yeah, and I met your mom at the performance summit, and yeah, I can attest for the fact that your family is definitely athletic.
Yeah, my mom, like I plan her workouts. I'm like, I don't know if I feel bad or if I'm jealous that she can handle this volume.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, one thing I wanted to ask, you mentioned that first thing that you do is you plan out your day. Do you have like, are you writing in a journal or do you have a calendar? How do you like to do that?
Yeah, I just, I write everything out in notes. So at the beginning of each month, like I will look at all the deadlines I have to do for school. And then like I plan my other ventures around that, because obviously right now, kind of what separates me from a lot of people currently trying to make it is the fact that I am studying nutritional biochemistry and I will be getting a PhD after this. That makes me special. So I know that I have to prioritize school. Right. So I plan everything around school. Like I see, okay, well, on this week, I don't have a lot of things due. So this is when I'm going to do the most things for my coaching. And then based on that, I will plan out exactly what I have to do for that day. So I like to break things up into like either school days or coaching days. My brain works a little bit better if I can just like do one style of work that day. Right. Or more like coaching time. Like I don't like to go from coaching to school to coaching. I'll say, okay, well, for the first half of the day, I'm going to do school, and then from like 11 to 3, I'm going to do coaching. So then on my notes app, I'll write, okay, so for the school portion of the day, I'm going to do this, and this, and then for the coaching portion of the day, I'm going to do that and the other.
Right. Yeah, that you sound like a pretty structured person, which is really cool. Like you have a big advantage because
I think you have 20.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So I guess last question is, any activity or habit or routine that you developed over the years that helped you to become more productive and to get more stuff done?
I think that getting up 30 minutes earlier than I have to is really what allows me to get a lot of stuff done, because then I can look at my day with a very clear space. And I find that when you have a lot of things to do and you really don't know when you are going to do them, that's when you start to get a little bit stressed and a little bit uncomfortable, because there's just stuff that you don't really know like when you're going to fit in. But when you have like everything sorted out, you can really be productive, because you don't have that stress of like, okay, well, when am I going to do this project or this lab or write this piece of content? So really having an organized schedule, both in the long term and for like a day in specific, can be huge for productivity. Right.
Okay, that is I think that's excellent advice. So yeah, man, this was an awesome interview. I really enjoyed this. So
yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciated talking to you.
Yeah, so please mention just where can people find you and any resource that you want people to check out.
Cool. Yeah, so you can find my personal Instagram is at mblacutt, MBLACUTT, and on there I post infographics and I answer a daily question on my Instagram story. And then you can also find me on at Physique Development. And I also answer a daily question on the Instagram story on there and post daily informative pictures on there. And if you want to apply for coaching, then you can go to either of those, or both lead you to online coaching. If you want to check out my work with Flexible Dieting Lifestyle, then you can go to Flexible Dieting Lifestyle and also apply for coaching there and look at facts, recipes. Oh, and my YouTube channel is Miguel Blacutt, just Miguel Blacutt, and that is where you can find really, if you want to see videos of me going into the science, that is where you will find that.
Hey guys, I just want to tell you again that your inputs for this podcast will help it grow more than anything, and your requests, ideas, and comments will contribute to awesome content going live on this channel and podcast more than anything. So if you want to contribute, the best thing you can do is to go on Facebook and look up Sustainable Self-Development. You'll find both the page and the Facebook group that is dedicated to discussions and ideas being thrown around. Go there and note down your comments about what kinds of topics or guests you want to be featured on this podcast and YouTube channel in the future. Just keep in mind the general theme of this podcast and my YouTube channel, which is to help people becoming their best selves in terms of lifestyle as it pertains to fitness and general personal development. This podcast is really dedicated to self-improvement, both physically and mentally. So keep that in mind. So thanks again for tuning in, and see you next time.